Hello, English learners. Welcome back to Daily English Talks. I'm Mia, and in today's lesson, we're going to explore one of the most important aspects of learning any language fluency. Specifically, we'll talk about the only way to become fluent in English. You might be wondering, Mia, isn't fluency about vocabulary and grammar? Well, it's a bit more than that, and I'm here to break it down for you. The truth is, there is one simple, yet incredibly effective way to achieve fluency in English, and that is practice. Yes, you heard me right, consistent, daily practice, but not just any practice. The right kind of practice can take you from struggling with sentences to speaking English effortlessly. Now, let's dive into how this works. Fluency in any language doesn't come overnight. It's like learning to play a musical instrument or becoming skilled at a sport. You can't just read about it or watch videos. You have to actually do it. And in English, that means speaking, listening, reading, and writing in real-life situations. While grammar and vocabulary are important, they are just tools. The key is using these tools in practical, everyday conversations. One of the most effective ways to start is by immersing yourself in English. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. Listen to podcasts, watch movies, read books, and even change the settings on your phone to English. The more you hear and see English, the easier it will be for you to pick up new words and phrases. But you might be thinking, I can't understand everything right now. That's okay. Don't worry about understanding every single word. Focus on the context. Over time, your brain will naturally start to pick up the meaning of unfamiliar words based on how they are used. Let's talk about speaking. This is often where people struggle the most. It's common to be afraid of making mistakes. But let me tell you, mistakes are a part of learning. The more mistakes you make, the faster you will learn. So, how do you practice speaking? Start by talking to yourself. Yes, I mean it. Think of what you want to say in English and say it out loud, even if you're alone. For example, if you're in the kitchen, describe what you're doing in English. I'm cutting vegetables for the salad. You don't need to have a conversation with someone to practice speaking. Another great way to practice speaking is by repeating after native speakers. You can do this by listening to YouTube videos, podcasts, or even songs, and trying to mimic the pronunciation and rhythm. This is a powerful way to get your mouth used to forming English sounds. When you repeat what you hear, your brain starts to build connections between what you hear and what you say, helping you speak more naturally over time. Now, let's move on to listening. Listening is just as important as speaking when it comes to fluency. You have to understand what others are saying to participate in a conversation. One great way to improve your listening skills is by listening to podcasts or watching television shows in English. But here's a tip. Start with shows or podcasts that are a little below your current level. This way, you'll be able to understand most of what's being said. As you get better, you can gradually increase the difficulty level. A fun exercise to improve both speaking and listening is shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a sentence or phrase in English and immediately repeat it. You don't have to understand every word at first, but try to match the speed and pronunciation. Over time, you'll improve both your listening and speaking skills. Next, let's talk about reading. Reading helps you improve your vocabulary and get used to the structure of the language. But here's a mistake many learners make. They only read textbooks or formal materials. While these are important, they don't always reflect how people actually speak in real life. So, Make sure to read a variety of things novels, blogs, social media posts, and even product descriptions. All of these things will expose you to different types of language and different levels of formality. When you read, pay attention to how sentences are structured. Look at how native speakers connect ideas and use phrases. Try to notice new words and phrases that you don't know. You can highlight them and look them up later, but don't interrupt your flow too much. The key is to keep reading, even if you don't understand everything. Eventually, you'll start recognizing words and phrases without even having to look them up. Now, on to writing. Writing in English is a fantastic way to solidify everything you've learned. It's not just about grammar. It's also about getting used to forming thoughts in English. Start by writing short daily entries in a journal or diary. Write about your day, your thoughts, or even make up stories. The more you write, the better you'll get at expressing yourself in English. Here's an exercise for you to try. Write a short paragraph about something you did today. For example, you could write, "Today I went to the market. I bought some fresh fruits and vegetables. After that, I went to the park for a walk." Don't worry about making it perfect. Just focus on getting your ideas down in English. Later, you can review your writing, check for mistakes, and correct them. This will help you learn and improve your writing skills. Remember, fluency isn't about perfection. It's about being able to express yourself clearly and confidently, even if your grammar isn't perfect. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. So, let's recap. To become fluent in English, you need to practice speaking every day, even if it's just to yourself. Listen to English content regularly, even if you don't understand everything. Read a variety of materials, from books to blogs, to improve your vocabulary and understanding of sentence structure. Write daily, even if it's just a short paragraph or journal entry. Be consistent and patient with your practice. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. The more you practice, the more fluent you will become. I know that becoming fluent in English might seem like a long journey, but trust me, you are already on the right track. Keep practicing, stay consistent, and most importantly, enjoy the process. Fluency is not a destination, it's a journey, and I'm so glad you're here taking this journey with me. Now, let's wrap up with a fun little exercise. I want you to pick a simple conversation topic. Maybe something like your favorite movie or a recent trip you took. Now, I want you to speak about that topic in English for 1 minute. You can even record yourself and listen back. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just try to express yourself for a minute in English. When you're done, review what you said and see if there's anything you can improve. Maybe there are new words you could use, or perhaps there's a sentence structure that doesn't sound quite right. That's perfectly okay. The goal is to keep improving and building confidence. I hope you found this lesson helpful. Remember, the road to fluency might seem long, but every bit of practice gets you closer to your goal. Keep going, and I'll be right here with you, helping you every step of the way. To continue on this path toward fluency, let's talk about a few common challenges that many learners face. One of the most significant obstacles in becoming fluent in English is the fear of making mistakes. It's entirely normal to feel this way. But here's the thing. Making mistakes is the best way to learn. In fact, some of the greatest learners, and even language teachers themselves, made mistakes along the way. The key is not to avoid mistakes, but to embrace them. Every time you make a mistake, you have an opportunity to learn and improve. Think about it like this. When you're learning to ride a bike, you're going to fall a few times. But each time you fall, you get a little better at balancing, and eventually, you're riding without even thinking about it. The same applies to English. The more you practice and make mistakes, the quicker you'll improve. So, don't be afraid to speak. Don't worry if your grammar isn't perfect, or if you mispronounce a word. The more you speak, the better you'll get. You might also find yourself comparing your progress to others, especially when you see people who seem to speak English effortlessly. But remember, everyone's journey is different. Some people may have been learning for years, while others might have started recently. Focus on your own improvement and celebrate every little milestone. Even if you don't speak perfectly, the fact that you're consistently practicing already sets you apart. Another challenge many learners face is vocabulary. You might know the basics, but how do you keep expanding your vocabulary? One method I highly recommend is to learn words in context. Instead of memorizing random vocabulary lists, try to learn words that are connected to real-life situations. This will make it easier to remember and use them in conversation. For example, let's say you're interested in cooking. If you learn cooking-related vocabulary, it becomes more relevant and easier to remember. You might learn words like sauté, simmer, or stir-fry. Then, when you're in the kitchen, you can practice using those words. You could say, I'm going to sauté the onions, or I love to stir-fry vegetables. You're learning vocabulary in a context that makes sense to you, and you're practicing it immediately. Another way to expand your vocabulary is by reading. As I mentioned earlier, reading a wide variety of materials will expose you to new words. And don't just look up every unfamiliar word right away. Try to figure out the meaning based on the context first. This way, you'll learn to recognize words in different contexts. And this will help you remember them better later. You can look up words you're not sure about and add them to your vocabulary list. Let's take a moment to practice with a short exercise. I want you to think about something you do every day, like going to work or school. Now, imagine you're explaining it in English. Use as many details as you can. For example, instead of saying, I go to work, try saying, every morning I wake up early and make a cup of coffee and take the bus to my office. See how adding a little detail can make your speech sound more natural and interesting? This is a great way to practice using new vocabulary and sentences in context. Now, let's talk about another important aspect of fluency: listening comprehension. Many learners often feel like their listening skills are not as strong as their speaking or reading. But the good news is, just like speaking and writing, listening is something you can improve with practice. One strategy to improve listening comprehension is to listen to content that interests you. For example, if you love music, try listening to English songs and paying attention to the lyrics. Listen carefully and try to write down the lyrics afterward. Check them online and see if you understood everything correctly. Listening to songs is an excellent way to improve your listening skills because it exposes you to conversational English, different accents, and colloquial expressions. Podcasts are another fantastic tool for improving listening. There are podcasts on almost any topic you can think of, whether it's health, business, comedy, or travel. Find a podcast that interests you and listen to it regularly. Start with slow podcasts or podcasts made for English learners. As you improve, challenge yourself by listening to more advanced podcasts. Try to summarize what you've learned after each episode. This will not only help with listening, but also with your speaking and writing. One great technique for practicing listening is listening with a purpose. This means listening to a piece of content with a specific goal in mind. For example, if you're listening to a podcast about a business topic, your goal might be to understand the main idea of the episode and learn 5 new business-related terms. By having a clear objective, you'll stay focused and make the most of your listening practice. Also, try watching videos with subtitles. This is a great way to connect spoken English with written English. Start with subtitles in your own language and gradually switch to English subtitles as you get more comfortable. This way, you can understand the content while also seeing how words are spelled and used in sentences. To practice your listening skills, I suggest you try shadowing again. Shadowing is incredibly helpful when it comes to improving both your listening and speaking at the same time. Choose a short video or podcast episode and listen to a sentence or phrase. After hearing it, immediately repeat it out loud. Focus on mimicking the rhythm, tone, and pronunciation as closely as you can. This will train your ear to recognize the natural flow of English, while helping you improve your pronunciation and fluency. Now, let's talk a little more about reading. As I mentioned, reading is crucial to your language learning. But here's something important. Don't just read in a passive way. Actively engage with the text. One excellent strategy is to underline or highlight words and phrases that you don't understand. Then look them up later. You can also take notes in a notebook or digital document, which helps you remember new vocabulary. To practice this, pick a short article or story and read it slowly. As you read, write down any words that are unfamiliar to you. Afterward, look them up and try to use them in sentences. For example, if you read the word complicated, you might create a sentence like, "The instructions for assembling the furniture were complicated." Doing this helps you not only remember new words, but also understand how to use them correctly. Another great exercise is to summarize what you've read in your own words. After reading an article or chapter in a book, try to explain the main points to yourself in English. This helps improve both your speaking and comprehension skills. When it comes to speaking fluently, one of the most helpful tips is to learn to think in English. This might sound a little strange at first, but it's one of the most effective ways to improve your fluency. Often, when learners speak in English, they are first translating from their native language into English, which can slow down their responses and make them sound less natural. To overcome this, try to start thinking directly in English. For example, when you wake up in the morning, try thinking about your day in English. Instead of thinking, "I have to go to work today," try thinking, "I'm going to the office today." The more you practice this, the faster you'll become at thinking in English, and the more natural your speech will sound. Of course, it's not going to happen overnight, But with consistent practice, your brain will start processing in English without the need to translate. You can also practice thinking in English by narrating your actions throughout the day. For instance, when you're walking down the street, you could say to yourself, "I'm walking to the bus stop now. There's a lot of traffic today. I hope I'm not late for my meeting." This exercise helps you get into the habit of thinking and speaking in English, and over time, it will feel more natural to speak without hesitation. Another crucial element in becoming fluent is learning to speak in longer, more detailed sentences. Many learners focus on short, simple sentences, which is fine when you're starting out. But fluency is about expressing complex thoughts clearly. The more you practice speaking in full, detailed sentences, the better you'll get at it. For example, instead of just saying, "I went to the store," try saying, "I went to the store this morning to buy some groceries. I needed some fresh fruit and vegetables for the week, and I also grabbed a few snacks." Notice how much more information you've added? This will not only improve your speaking fluency, but also make you sound more confident and natural. Speaking in longer sentences also helps you practice using connectors like because, although, however, and in addition. These connectors are key to fluent English because they allow you to link ideas together in a way that sounds smooth and coherent. For example, you could say, "I went to the store because I needed some fresh fruit and vegetables, but it was very crowded, so I didn't stay long." The use of connectors like because and but helps you create a more natural flow of ideas. Here's a fun exercise to practice this. Choose a topic you enjoy, like your favorite hobby or recent event, and try to talk about it for at least 2 minutes without stopping. The goal is to speak in full sentences and express your thoughts as clearly as possible. You can record yourself and listen back to see where you can improve. Maybe you notice that you use simple sentences or that you hesitate to speak. That's okay. Use this as an opportunity to practice. Another important factor in improving your fluency is exposure to different accents and dialects. English is spoken in many different countries, and the accent can vary significantly depending on where you're from. For example, the English spoken in the United States sounds quite different from British English, Australian English, or even Indian English. Each accent has its own rhythm, intonation, and vocabulary. To become truly fluent, it's essential to get used to these different accents. One way to do this is by listening to English speakers from different parts of the world. Watch videos or listen to podcasts featuring speakers from different countries. Don't worry if you find it difficult to understand at first. Over time, your brain will adapt, and you'll become better at recognizing the nuances of different accents. A good practice exercise for this is to watch a video with a strong accent, whether it's British, Australian, or something else, and try to transcribe what you hear. It's not easy, but it will challenge your listening skills and help you become more flexible when it comes to understanding different types of spoken English. Also, make sure you're practicing with a variety of content. Listening to only one type of English, say, American English, might limit your understanding when you encounter different accents. By diversifying your listening practice, you'll become more comfortable with the wide range of accents and dialects in the English-speaking world. Let's talk a bit about pronunciation. Pronunciation is a key part of fluency. It's not just about saying the right word sits, about saying them in a way that's clear and understandable to others. A common issue for many learners is mispronouncing words, especially those that are difficult or have irregular spelling patterns. For example, the word though might be tricky for some learners because it's pronounced differently from how it's spelled. One of the best ways to improve your pronunciation is by mimicking native speakers. As I mentioned earlier, shadowing is a fantastic technique for this. But you can also practice pronunciation by listening to words or phrases and repeating them multiple times. Pay close attention to the way native speakers pronounce sounds, especially those that don't exist in your native language. For instance, English has several vowel sounds that might be unfamiliar to you, like the short I in sit or the long E in see. Practice repeating these sounds until you feel comfortable with them. You can also use online resources like YouTube videos or language apps that focus on pronunciation. Another tip is to break down difficult words into syllables. For example, let's take the word comfortable. Many learners pronounce it as comfortable, but the correct pronunciation is comfortable. By breaking the word down into its syllables and practicing each one, you'll improve your ability to say longer words clearly and confidently. If you're unsure about how to pronounce a word, there are plenty of online dictionaries that provide audio pronunciations. You can listen to the word and practice saying it until it sounds just right. And don't be afraid to ask native speakers for help if you're unsure about the pronunciation of a word. Most people will be happy to correct you and offer guidance. Pronunciation isn't something that happens overnight, but with consistent practice, you'll notice significant improvement. Just keep practicing regularly, and you'll find that your speech becomes clearer and easier to understand. We've covered a lot of ground so far, but let's talk about something that might feel a bit challenging. Self-confidence. If there's one thing that holds many learners back, it's the lack of confidence when speaking English. Many learners fear making mistakes, worrying about how others will judge them. But let me tell you something important. Everyone makes mistakes, and nobody speaks perfectly all the time. In fact, even native speakers slip up in their own language from time to time. The key to overcoming this fear is to remind yourself that language is all about communication. The purpose of speaking English is to convey your thoughts and ideas clearly, not to sound perfect. Fluency isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about being able to express yourself naturally, even if your grammar isn't always spot on. One simple way to build confidence is by practicing in a safe environment. Find people who are understanding and encouraging. Or even practice by talking to yourself. This might sound odd, but it works. The more you speak aloud, the more confident you'll become. When you practice by yourself, there's no pressure or fear of judgment, and you can simply focus on improving your speaking skills. Another confidence-building exercise is to keep a language journal. Write down your thoughts in English every day, even if it's just a few sentences. Writing will give you the time to think about your ideas and express them clearly. As you get more comfortable with writing, you'll find that it helps your speaking confidence as well. Writing gives you the chance to perfect your sentence structures and learn new vocabulary that you can later use in conversations. You can also practice speaking in front of a mirror. This is a simple yet effective exercise. Stand in front of the mirror and imagine you're having a conversation with someone. Talk about your day, your favorite hobby, or anything that interests you. Watching yourself speak English will help you notice any areas where you need to improve, such as pronunciation or body language. Plus, it helps you get used to hearing your own voice in English. which is crucial for building confidence. One of the most powerful tools for building confidence in speaking is to find a language partner. This could be someone who speaks English fluently, or another learner like you. Having someone to practice with makes the learning process less intimidating and more enjoyable. You can practice simple conversations at first, like greeting each other or talking about your day. Over time, you can challenge each other with more complex discussions. A language partner will also give you feedback and help you identify areas for improvement. There are many online platforms and language exchange apps where you can find conversation partners. These platforms allow you to connect with native speakers or other learners, and you can practice speaking via video calls or voice messages. Some apps even let you find language partners based on shared interests, which makes the learning experience more enjoyable and engaging. But confidence doesn't only come from speaking. It also comes from consistency. The more consistently you practice, the more progress you'll make, and the more confident you'll feel. Make it a habit to practice every day. Even if you only spend 15 minutes a day practicing speaking or listening, this regular practice will add up over time. Consistency is key to building fluency. Let's talk about another strategy for improving fluency. Focusing on specific topics. While it's essential to learn general vocabulary and grammar, becoming fluent in English also means having a deep understanding of specific topics that interest you. When you focus on a particular area, such as business, travel, or even a hobby like cooking or sports, you'll gain more specialized vocabulary, making your speech sound more natural and precise. For example, if you enjoy traveling, you could learn vocabulary related to airports, hotels, and sightseeing. You could also practice common phrases like, "How do I get to the train station?" Or, "Can you recommend a good restaurant?" The more you practice specific topics, the more fluent you'll become in those areas. And over time, you'll be able to combine the vocabulary from different topics to have more dynamic and varied conversations. One great exercise for this is to choose a specific topic each week and focus on learning related vocabulary and phrases. For example, in 1 week, you could focus on vocabulary for ordering food at a restaurant. Learn phrases like, "I'd like to order the soup," or "Can I get the bill, please?" Then, the following week, switch to a different topic, like travel or business meetings. This allows you to build your fluency in various areas, which will come in handy in everyday conversations. Another great strategy is to practice storytelling. Being able to tell a story in English is an excellent way to build fluency. Storytelling allows you to use a variety of vocabulary and sentence structures. It also gives you the opportunity to practice using past tenses, which are often tricky for learners. The more you practice telling stories, the more comfortable you'll become with speaking fluently. Start by telling short stories about your day. For example, you could say, "This morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and went to the park to take a walk. On my way there, I bumped into an old friend from high school. We chatted for a few minutes before I continued my walk." As you get more comfortable, challenge yourself by telling longer stories, including more details and using more complex sentence structures. The goal is to practice speaking in a natural flow, without overthinking each sentence. Storytelling also helps with remembering new vocabulary. As you tell stories, you'll naturally include the words and phrases you've learned recently. This helps solidify those words in your memory and makes it easier to use them in conversations in the future. Another fantastic tool for building fluency is listening to TED Talks or speeches by great public speakers. These types of talks often feature clear and eloquent English, which will help you improve your listening skills and pronunciation. After listening, try to summarize the talk in your own words, focusing on the key points. This will improve both your listening and speaking skills, and it will help you learn how to present ideas in English clearly. And finally, I want to talk about self-motivation. Language learning requires persistence. And there will be times when you feel frustrated or discouraged. That's perfectly normal. The key to staying motivated is to set small, achievable goals and celebrate your progress. Every time you reach a milestone, whether it's mastering a new tense, speaking more confidently, or understanding a difficult podcast, celebrate it. This helps you stay positive and motivated, and it keeps you moving forward on your language learning journey. Now that we've covered the major strategies for improving fluency, let's dive deeper into the importance of consistency. One of the most common reasons people struggle with becoming fluent in English is the inconsistency of their practice. They may study intensively for a few days or weeks, but then stop for a long period of time. Language learning requires a continuous effort, and fluency is built slowly over time with regular practice. Imagine if you went to the gym and worked out for an entire week, but then didn't exercise again for a month. You wouldn't see much improvement, would you? The same principle applies to language learning. To become fluent, you need to make English practice a part of your daily routine. It doesn't matter if you practice for 30 minutes or an hour. As long as you practice consistently every day, little by little, your language skills will improve, and you'll notice your fluency growing. One effective way to stay consistent is to set a daily or weekly language learning schedule. For example, you could decide to practice speaking for 10 minutes every morning and listen to an English podcast during your lunch break by creating a structured plan. You're making sure that you're practicing regularly. You don't need to plan every minute of your day, but setting small, manageable goals will help you stay on track. Another tip for maintaining consistency is to track your progress. When you're learning a new language, it's easy to feel like you're not improving, especially when you hit a plateau. However, by keeping track of your achievements, you'll be able to see how far you've come. Maybe you've learned 50 new words this month, or you've been able to have a 10-minute conversation in English. Celebrate these victories. Tracking your progress gives you a sense of accomplishment, and it will motivate you to keep going. One tool that can be especially helpful in tracking your progress is language learning apps. Many apps allow you to set daily goals and track how many days in a row you've practiced. Some apps even have progress bars or streaks that visually show how much you've improved. If you're competitive by nature, seeing those streaks grow can give you an extra boost of motivation. It's also important to mix up your learning methods to keep things interesting and prevent burnout. For example, one day you might focus on grammar, the next on listening, and the following on speaking. If you only practice one skill for an extended period of time, it can become monotonous. By mixing things up, you'll stay more engaged. and your brain will be better able to retain information. You could alternate between watching English movies, listening to podcasts, reading articles, and speaking with friends or language partners. Variety will keep you motivated and improve your overall fluency in multiple areas. One way to ensure that you're always practicing is to surround yourself with English. If you're constantly exposed to the language, you're more likely to think about it throughout the day, even when you're not actively studying. There are many ways to do this. Change your phone's language settings to English. Listen to English music while doing chores, or switch your social media accounts to English. The more you expose yourself to English in everyday situations, the more natural it will feel. You can also find fun ways to practice, such as playing word games or puzzles in English. Many apps offer language games that help improve vocabulary, grammar, and listening skills. While these games might seem like just a way to pass the time, they actually serve as a form of practice. They keep your brain engaged with English in a fun and interactive way. Let's talk about another crucial part of learning a language: developing your cultural understanding. Fluency in a language isn't just about knowing how to speak and write. It also involves understanding the culture that goes along with it. When you learn about the culture of English-speaking countries, it can help you understand the language better and use it in the right context. For example, let's say you're traveling to an English-speaking country. If you understand the culture and customs, it will make it easier to communicate effectively. You'll understand why certain phrases are used in specific situations, and you'll be able to navigate cultural nuances more easily. In many cases, language learners are able to connect more deeply with native speakers when they understand the cultural context behind the language. There are many ways to learn about the culture of English-speaking countries. Watching movies, reading books, and listening to podcasts are great ways to immerse yourself in both the language and the culture. You can also follow news and social media from English-speaking countries to get a better sense of current events, humor, and trends. The more you understand the cultural background, the more your language skills will improve. It's also important to remember that language and culture are constantly evolving. Just as language learners need to stay updated on new vocabulary, they also need to keep up with cultural trends and changes. This is especially important when learning slang or informal language. Slang terms often change quickly, so it's essential to stay current by interacting with native speakers and keeping an eye on cultural shifts. One example of this is the rise of social media influencers and YouTube channels. These influencers often use new slang or expressions that may not be found in textbooks, but are used widely in everyday conversations. By watching these videos or following influencers on social media, you can pick up on new phrases and expressions that will help you sound more like a native speaker. Let's pause here for a moment and think about how much we've covered so far. You've learned about the importance of practice, overcoming fear, thinking in English, using context to expand vocabulary, the power of storytelling, and building self-confidence. We've also discussed the need for consistency, mixing up your practice methods, and staying engaged with English through cultural understanding. Each of these elements plays a key role in improving your fluency, and they all work together to help you reach your goal of becoming fluent. At this point, it's important to remind you that fluency doesn't happen overnight. It's a long-term journey that requires patience and persistence. But if you stay committed, continue practicing every day, and embrace the process, you'll find that your fluency improves over time. You'll begin to notice that speaking English becomes easier, more natural, and more enjoyable. Now, let's dive deeper into the role of immersion in becoming fluent in English. Immersion is often considered one of the most effective ways to learn a language because it surrounds you with the language in a natural and meaningful context. When you immerse yourself in English, you're exposed to it constantly through conversations, media, music, literature, and even the way people express their emotions and ideas. The more you immerse yourself in the language, the faster you'll learn, and the more easily you'll pick up new words, phrases, and pronunciation. One way to immerse yourself is by consuming English content regularly. Watch English movies, television shows, and YouTube channels. But don't just watch passively. Pay attention to the way native speakers speak, how they use intonation, stress, and rhythm in their speech. Notice the vocabulary they use in everyday situations, such as how they order food at a restaurant, or how they make small talk at a party. These real-world conversations will help you become familiar with the natural flow of the language, which will ultimately help you sound more like a native speaker. While watching content, try to focus on the details of the language. For instance, pay attention to the expressions or idioms that native speakers commonly use. These idiomatic expressions often don't translate directly into other languages, so they're an essential part of fluency. For example, phrases like break the ice or hit the nail on the head are common in casual conversation. Understanding them will help you communicate more naturally. It's also a good idea to pause the video or show and repeat the phrases out loud. Mimic the speaker's tone, pace, and emotion. By doing this, you'll not only improve your pronunciation, but you'll also begin to internalize the way these expressions are used in real-life situations. You can also read books, newspapers, or online articles in English. This will help you expand your vocabulary, improve your reading comprehension, and get used to different writing styles. Start with materials that are slightly below your current level to build confidence. Then gradually increase the difficulty as you improve. Reading different genres of writing is also a good idea. Fiction, nonfiction, news articles, and blogs all use English in different ways. Each type of writing will introduce you to new vocabulary and language structures. If you're not sure where to start, try reading books or articles about topics that interest you. Whether it's cooking, travel, business, or technology. Reading about topics you're passionate about will make the experience more enjoyable and engaging. You'll learn new words that are relevant to your interests, and because you're already familiar with the subject, you'll have an easier time understanding the vocabulary and ideas. Another key part of immersion is surrounding yourself with English speakers. This doesn't necessarily mean you have to travel to an English-speaking country, though that's one way to immerse yourself in the language. You can create an immersive environment from home. One option is to participate in language exchange programs, where you speak with native English speakers and, in return, help them with your native language. There are many online platforms that connect language learners from around the world for conversational practice, such as HelloTalk, Tandem, or Speaky. You can practice speaking with people via voice messages, video calls, or chat, which gives you an excellent opportunity to use English in real conversations. Joining English-speaking communities or groups, whether they're online or in person also, offers a great chance to practice. Social media platforms like Facebook, Reddit, and Discord have dedicated groups where people communicate in English. Participating in these groups gives you exposure to both written and informal spoken English, and allows you to see how people use language in their everyday lives. This type of interaction is especially useful for learning slang, abbreviations, and expressions that aren't commonly found in textbooks. Furthermore, surrounding yourself with English doesn't mean only interacting with native speakers. Speaking with other learners is also highly beneficial. Learners tend to speak slower and use simpler language, which can be less intimidating. You'll also feel more comfortable making mistakes, which is crucial for learning. Having regular conversations, even with other learners, will help you gain confidence and practice speaking naturally. You'll be able to try out new words, ask questions when you're unsure, and correct each other's mistakes. This process of mutual learning and feedback is invaluable to improving your fluency. Let's also talk about another effective immersion strategy: labeling your environment. This might sound like a silly exercise, but it's a fun and productive way to surround yourself with English while at home. Simply take sticky notes and label things around your house in English. Label objects like your door, refrigerator, and windows, and even write down phrases like, "Please wash your hands," or "Take out the trash." This constant exposure to written English will help reinforce your vocabulary, and you'll naturally begin to think about objects and actions in English. If you want to take this a step further, consider switching your phone's operating system to English. By changing your phone's settings to English, you'll be constantly interacting with the language throughout your day. You'll learn tech-related vocabulary and be exposed to short, everyday phrases that are commonly used in digital communication, such as accept, share, settings, and location. This type of exposure will help you become more familiar with English in practical, real-world situations. Let's now shift focus to one of the most important parts of fluency: pronunciation. We've touched on pronunciation before, but it's worth going into more detail, as pronunciation is often a challenging aspect of language learning. The goal is not only to be understood, but also to sound natural when speaking. Many learners feel that their pronunciation holds them back from speaking fluently. They may worry that their accent is too strong, or that they can't pronounce certain sounds correctly. But the key to improving pronunciation is practice, awareness, and persistence. One of the first things you should focus on is learning the sounds of English. English has many vowel and consonant sounds that may not exist in your native language, so it's important to practice these sounds. For example, English has several different t sounds, such as the t in this and think. Many learners struggle with these sounds. By practicing them regularly, you'll get more comfortable with their pronunciation and be able to use them more confidently in conversation. Another common issue for learners is mastering the stress and intonation patterns of English. English is a stress-timed language, which means that stressed syllables are pronounced louder and longer than unstressed syllables. For instance, in the word banana, the stress falls on the second syllable, ba-na. This is different from syllable-timed languages like Spanish or French, where each syllable takes about the same amount of time. If you want to sound natural in English, it's essential to understand stress patterns and how to emphasize the right syllables. Practice by listening to native speakers and mimicking their intonation and stress patterns. Repeat phrases out loud until they sound natural and rhythmical. Additionally, mastering connected speech is crucial for sounding more fluent. Native speakers often blend words together in fast speech. For example, in casual conversation, "What do you want to do?" may sound like, "Wadaya, wanna do?" Or, "Can you help me?" may sound like, "Can you help me?" Understanding and practicing connected speech will help you keep up with natural conversations and help you sound more fluent. A fun exercise to improve your pronunciation is shadowing. This technique involves listening to a short audio or video clip of a native speaker and trying to repeat exactly what they say, mimicking their pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. You can do this with YouTube videos, podcasts, or movies. Shadowing is particularly helpful because it helps train your ear to recognize the natural flow of spoken English and improve your own speaking skills at the same time. Another important aspect of becoming fluent in English is embracing mistakes and using them as stepping stones for growth. Many language learners fear making errors when they speak, write, or even listen in English. But here's the truth. Mistakes are an essential part of the learning process. The more you make, the more you learn, and the faster you improve. Mistakes are not something to be ashamed of. They are valuable lessons that guide you toward fluency. Let's break this down. When you make a mistake in speaking or writing, you have the opportunity to understand why it happened and how to avoid it in the future. For example, you might mispronounce a word or use the wrong verb tense. Instead of feeling embarrassed or frustrated, take a moment to think about why it happened. Did you confuse two similar words? Did you forget the rules for a particular tense? Reflecting on your mistakes helps you learn from them. One of the best ways to handle mistakes is to view them as feedback rather than failures. When you make an error, take it as an opportunity to refine your skills. If you're speaking with a language partner and you mispronounce a word, don't worry about it too much. Simply ask them for correction and then practice the correct pronunciation. If you're writing and make a grammatical error, look up the rule and practice writing the sentence correctly a few times. Over time, these small corrections will add up, and you'll find that your overall fluency improves. Let's consider another example. Imagine you're in a conversation, and you don't know the right word to express something. This can be a little scary, but it's important to stay calm and think on your feet. One technique is to use circumlocution, which means describing the word you can't think of. For example, if you're trying to say fridge but can't remember the word, you could say, "It's the thing in the kitchen where you keep your food cold." The person you're speaking with will understand, and they might even help you recall the word. Circumlocution is a great tool because it allows you to keep the conversation going, even if you don't know every single word. Mistakes are also a great way to test how well you understand the language. If you get a sentence wrong, it's a sign that you need more practice in that area. It's helpful to focus on these weak points and work on improving them. For instance, if you often confuse the past simple and present perfect tenses, you can dedicate more time to practicing these tenses in various contexts. As you continue to make mistakes and correct them, your understanding of English will become stronger, and the number of errors you make will naturally decrease over time. Remember, language is dynamic, and fluency is not about perfection. It's about communication. The goal of learning English is to be able to express your ideas clearly and effectively. Perfection is an unrealistic standard that can only slow down your progress. Instead of trying to speak perfectly, aim to speak confidently and understandably. Even if your grammar isn't perfect or your accent isn't flawless, as long as you can get your message across, you're making great progress. Let's talk now about the role of listening in improving your fluency. Listening is often one of the most underestimated skills in language learning, but it plays a critical role in helping you become fluent. The more you listen to English, the more familiar you'll become with its sounds, rhythms, and patterns. In fact, listening is often considered the foundation of speaking fluency because it trains your ear to recognize the language in real-life contexts. To improve your listening skills, start by listening to a variety of English audio sources. You don't need to listen to academic or formal English all the time. In fact, it's more beneficial to listen to everyday, conversational English because that's what you'll hear most often in real-life interactions. Podcasts, YouTube videos, television shows, and even social media content are great sources for informal English. These types of media will expose you to slang, idiomatic expressions, and colloquial language, which are all important for sounding natural when you speak. When you first start listening to English content, it may seem difficult to understand everything. That's okay. Don't get discouraged. Start with slower, easier content and work your way up to more complex material. You can even listen to the same audio multiple times until you feel comfortable with it. For example, you can listen to a podcast episode once to get the general idea. Then listen again to focus on specific words or phrases you didn't catch the first time. One great technique to improve your listening skills is to use shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to an audio clip and repeat what you hear as closely as possible. This technique helps you improve your pronunciation, listening comprehension, and speaking fluency all at once. When you shadow, try to mimic the intonation, stress, and rhythm of the speaker. This will train your ear to recognize the natural flow of English and help you sound more natural when you speak. Another listening exercise you can try is dictation. This is a simple but effective way to improve both listening and writing skills. Listen to a short audio clip and try to write down exactly what you hear. Afterward, compare your notes with the transcript, if available. This exercise will help you develop your ability to hear and understand English accurately, which is a crucial skill for fluency. If you want to focus on understanding native speakers more easily, you can also practice listening to fast speech. Native speakers often speak quickly, especially in informal situations, and it can be challenging for learners to keep up. To improve, start by listening to shorter, fast-paced clips and gradually increase the length and complexity. Over time, you'll become more comfortable with fast speech, and you'll notice that it becomes easier to understand people in real-life conversations. The importance of listening to a variety of accents cannot be overlooked either. English is spoken by people from all over the world, and accents can vary significantly from one region to another. In the United States, for example, the English spoken in New York is very different from that spoken in Texas. Similarly, English in the UK has many different regional accents, from London to Liverpool. The more you expose yourself to different accents, the easier it will be to understand English speakers from various backgrounds. If you're interested in improving your ability to understand different accents, there are many resources available online. You can find videos, podcasts, and movies featuring speakers from different regions and countries. Listening to these different accents will help you become more adaptable in conversations with people from all over the world. You'll also gain a deeper understanding of how pronunciation and vocabulary can change across different English-speaking regions. The next skill we need to discuss is reading. Reading is a crucial part of language learning, and it can significantly enhance your fluency. Reading exposes you to new vocabulary, idiomatic expressions, and sentence structures, all of which you can incorporate into your speaking and writing. One of the great things about reading is that it allows you to encounter language in a more controlled and deliberate way than speaking or listening. Start with materials that match your current proficiency level, and gradually challenge yourself with more difficult texts. You might begin with graded readers' books written specifically for language learners, and then move on to more complex texts like novels, newspapers, and academic articles. Don't be afraid to underline words you don't understand. Look them up and try to use them in your own writing or speaking. The more vocabulary you acquire, the more fluent you will become. Also, pay attention to how sentences are structured in different types of writing. For example, the language used in newspapers is different from the language used in novels or academic papers. By reading a variety of materials, you'll learn how to express yourself in different contexts, which will help you communicate more effectively in both formal and informal situations. Reading aloud is another fantastic exercise to improve both your fluency and pronunciation. As you read aloud, focus on your pronunciation and try to match the intonation and rhythm of the text. This exercise will help you build confidence in speaking and improve your ability to produce the language naturally. As we continue to explore ways to improve your fluency, let's talk about the importance of writing in your language learning journey. Writing is often a skill that gets overlooked in spoken English practice, but it plays a key role in solidifying your understanding of grammar, sentence structure, and vocabulary. Even if you don't have a specific person to write to, writing can help you gain confidence and express your thoughts clearly in English. When you write, you're forced to slow down and think carefully about what you want to say. This process gives you time to focus on the correct use of grammar, sentence structure, and word choice. Writing also helps you build a mental database of common phrases, idiomatic expressions, and vocabulary, which you can then use in conversations. Writing can, in essence, be a rehearsal for spoken language. One of the most effective ways to improve your writing skills is to keep a language journal. This could be a simple notebook or a digital document where you write daily or weekly entries in English. The key is consistency. You don't need to write long, complicated texts, just focus on expressing your thoughts in English. Write about your day, your plans, your feelings, or anything that interests you. The more you write, the better you'll become at organizing your ideas in English and expressing them clearly. Another great exercise is to write short stories or essays on topics that interest you. This could be a description of your favorite place, a reflection on a recent experience, or an opinion piece about an issue you care about. When you write longer pieces, you have the opportunity to experiment with different vocabulary, sentence structures, and tenses. Writing longer pieces also forces you to think about coherence and cohesion, making your writing sound more polished and professional. If you're not sure where to start, try looking up writing prompts online. These prompts can give you a topic to write about, helping you overcome writer's block. You can also find prompts designed for language learners that focus on specific grammar or vocabulary points. For example, you might be given a prompt to write a paragraph using the past perfect tense, or a story incorporating 10 new vocabulary words you've learned. Writing under these constraints forces you to pay attention to specific areas of the language and strengthens your overall fluency. After you write something, it's important to review and edit it. Editing allows you to catch errors, improve your vocabulary, and make your writing flow more naturally. For example, if you notice you've used the same word repeatedly, look for synonyms or alternative expressions to add variety. This is where vocabulary expansion comes into play. The more words you learn, the more options you'll have when writing. If you can, ask a language partner or teacher to review your writing. Feedback from others is invaluable because it helps you see where you're making mistakes and how you can improve. Sometimes, we overlook small errors or misuses of grammar, so having a second pair of eyes to catch these mistakes can accelerate your learning. Don't be afraid to make corrections. This is part of the learning process, and it will help you develop your language skills more quickly. For learners who prefer digital tools, there are many grammar and writing tools available to assist you. For example, Grammarly is a popular tool that checks for spelling, grammar, and punctuation errors. It also provides suggestions for improving sentence structure and style. While it's helpful, don't rely solely on these tools. Always aim to learn from the feedback they give you, and try to apply it to your writing going forward. One great way to practice writing in a real-world context is to engage in online forums, comment sections, or social media platforms where you can interact with native speakers. Commenting on posts, answering questions, or writing short messages can give you practical writing experience while also helping you connect with other learners and native speakers. Whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, or even in email exchanges, writing informally online can help you become more comfortable with using English in daily life. Let's now shift gears and talk about how to improve your speaking fluency. While it's essential to practice reading, writing, and listening, speaking is the skill that often determines how fluent you feel. Many learners struggle with speaking because they feel self-conscious or afraid of making mistakes. However, the best way to overcome this fear is simply to practice speaking as much as possible. Start by finding opportunities to speak with others, even if they are fellow learners. Practicing with someone who is also learning can reduce the pressure of speaking with a native speaker. Language exchange apps like HelloTalk, Tandem, and Speaky allow you to connect with native speakers and practice speaking via text, voice messages, or video calls. If you don't have a conversation partner, don't worry, there are still ways to practice speaking on your own. One effective exercise is to speak to yourself in English. This might sound strange, but speaking to yourself out loud in English helps reinforce the language and boosts your confidence. You can narrate your day, describe what you see around you, or practice specific phrases or vocabulary you've learned. You can also try to tell a story or summarize a book or movie you've recently read or watched. By doing this, you practice forming sentences and using vocabulary, and you become more comfortable with hearing yourself speak in English. If you have the opportunity, try to participate in group conversations or join an English-speaking club. Many cities have groups where learners meet regularly to speak English together. You can also look for online communities or virtual meetups that focus on language practice. Being in a group setting allows you to learn from others, hear different accents, and improve your overall fluency. Another great speaking exercise is to shadow native speakers. As mentioned earlier, shadowing involves listening to a short audio clip or watching a video and repeating what you hear. This helps you mimic the pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation of native speakers. To shadow effectively, you don't need to memorize the script word for word. Instead, focus on mimicking the way the speaker sounds. It's all about practicing the flow of the language and gaining familiarity with natural speech patterns. You can also try recording yourself speaking and then listening to the recording. This exercise helps you identify areas where you may need to improve, such as pronunciation, sentence structure, or vocabulary use. It can be difficult to evaluate your own speaking, but by listening to yourself, you'll be able to track your progress and notice any areas that need more attention. Over time, you'll see a significant improvement in your ability to express yourself fluently. Another tip for improving your speaking skills is to learn and practice common conversational phrases. Every language has a set of phrases that native speakers use frequently in casual conversations, and English is no exception. Phrases like, "How's it going?" "What's up?" "Long time no see," or "Can't complain," are all part of everyday English. Mastering these phrases will help you feel more confident when speaking with others, and will make you sound more natural. If you're still unsure about your speaking skills, remember that fluency isn't about perfect grammar or flawless pronunciation. Native speakers themselves make mistakes or speak imperfectly all the time. Fluency is about communicating ideas clearly and effectively. If you can do that, you're already on the right track. Lastly, try to use English in everyday situations. Speak to yourself while cooking, doing chores, or running errands. Change your mental language to English, and try to think in English instead of translating from your native language. The more you practice speaking, the more natural and easy it will become.